On a recent mild January day, I visited the new National Museum of African American History and Culture, known colloquially as the African American Museum. It was on the eve of Martin Luther King's birthday, and for many was an early holiday and the occasion of family reunions for many Black families who also used the time to visit the museum together. The museum is placed on the Mall, mere steps from the Washington Monument, on the location of a cotton plantation that had as many as 200 enslaved people. The shape of the cast aluminum building was inspired by the tiered crown of a sculpture of a Yoruba king. The museum is at once a repository of memories and evidence. It also functions as a temple of prayer, hope, and perspective. It functions on many levels to reconcile the over 500 years of struggle of a people, and also with its small and large advances, with its constant barrage of insults and assaults, with its equally constant flowering of achievement throughout the continuing march of time.
The Atlantic world, the connection of 4 continents that shape the rim of the Atlantic Ocean, came into being based on the labor and forced movement of enslaved Africans. Atlantic world slavery, also considered New World slavery, exploited human lives to build wealth and power for nation-states, colonies, institutions, and individuals.
The journey through the collection is a physical walk through time, starting in the basement, reminiscent of the tight spaces a newly captured African might experience. The winding hallways, like that of a slave ship, gradually marching through the centuries of change, both fast and slow, eventually making it into the beams of light, both natural and artificial, and wide spaces as we see pictures and artifacts closer and closer to our own time.
Enslaved at age 11 and taken to the Caribbean and the Americas. Equiano endured the horrific experience of New World enslavement. In his autobiography, he recalled, "In a little time after, amongst the poor chained men, I found some of my own nation, which in a small degree gave ease to my mind." The church, governments, and companies invested in the business of slavery. The sale of enslaved Africans and the profits made from their labor developed European nations and New World colonies. Men such as Henry Lawrence, a partner in one of the largest slave trading houses in colonial North America, transformed their profits into position and power. Lawrence sold thousands of enslaved Africans in the 1750s. He gained influence as one of the wealthiest colonists and later became a prominent member of the Continental Congress. The wealth generated by slavery was enormous for nations as well. By 1833, when Great Britain abolished slavery, the country paid out roughly $2.4 billion in today's currency to compensate British slave owners. The transatlantic slave trade was built on profit and human suffering. Despite the harsh reality of the inhumanity of enslavement, enslaved people, forcibly dispersed throughout the Atlantic world, created something more. New connections, new cultures, and a rich African diaspora.
The range of materials includes the sacred prayer books of escaping slaves, the lace shawl of Harriet Tubman, presented to her by Queen Victoria, to the mundane, video of jazz bands, and the first vision of Diahann Carroll in the role of Julia on television. The museum portrays the majesty and strategy of early African kings, queens, translators, and merchants, and leads us into the squalor and deprivation of what forced servitude can be. From two examples of plantation slave housing to the Pullman cars that served as the workplace for many striving black men in the 20th century, the exhibits had audio of the soaring speeches of Martin Luther King, the writings of Frederick Douglass, the presidents and activists of all colors that continue to fight for equality, and the hallowed and haunted inner sanctum that holds the coffin of Emmett Till and the photos and film of that era, evoking the fear and horror of the time. Fortunately, the designers of the building also created an immense room of contemplation with its loudly cascading shower of water and light that helped to quiet the minds, pictures, and noise, and start the museum goer on a path to reintegration and personal healing. The volume of still photos, both original prints and billboard-sized presentations, books, large-scale transparencies, maps, animations, films, video reconstructions, audio, artifacts in wood, fiber, and paper, furniture, actual entire buildings, vehicles of the ground and the air, combine to shape this museum's narrative in an almost overwhelming and weighty fashion as much as the physical tonnage could be on the building itself. To properly grasp the museum's scope and on any level fully comprehend the nature of the struggle it presents, and fully witness the power of the overcoming of continual adversity, will indeed take multiple visits.